Final score, Memphis 87, Clemson 82. It's a big victory for Penny Hardaway's Tigers. They went to Little John Coliseum, a place where not even Mark Pope's Kentucky Wildcats could win earlier this season, and defeated the Tigers to move back into the CBS Sports Top 25 and won. Bennett, Memphis is number 21. Will you accept that?
I will absolutely accept that. I'm very glad to see that they are their AP comes out today, right?
Be out about an hour and 20 minutes or so. So we'll be gone probably by the time the AP poll comes out.
But they'll be in it.
Barring a surprise, the Tigers should return to the AP poll after a 1-week absence following last Sunday's disappointing loss at home to Arkansas State. Penny Hardaway tried to tell us. Ben, if you just listen, Penny Hardaway tried to tell us. If you would just listen, Penny Hardaway tried to tell us, we're fine. That's not my team that lost to Arkansas State. This is not like last season's team. We're fine. That's just something that happened. Wish it wouldn't have happened. Hope it never happens again. But we're going to be fine. He tried to tell us, if you would just listen, you could have saved yourself a lot of stress last week.
Yeah, for sure. And I was stressed. I mean, because the big thing was, I thought that they were going to bounce back and be super competitive in this game against Clemson. But you could still do that and lose that game because that's against a really quality opponent on a true, road environment. So for them to get the win, especially after going to overtime, I was fired up about it. And Tyrese Hunter, I thought, dude, I was like, there's no chance he has another bad game like that. Like back-to-back just bad games. There's no way he's going to do that, and he did not. He was awesome.
In all seriousness, I told you last week I went down to Ole Miss, and I was sitting with Chris Beard, and we were talking about a million things other than Memphis, but at some point it was like, so you guys got Memphis on the 28th. Have you seen them? And he was like, they're going to be fine. This was, a couple days after they just lost at home to Arkansas State.
Yep.
He's like, they'll be fine. And I was like, he's like, they have Tyrese Hunter. I coach Tyrese Hunter. As long as he's the guy leading them or one of the guys leading them, they'll be fine because he won't let that go the wrong way. He's made of the right stuff. Mm-hmm. I like it when guys who used to coach players don't badmouth them behind the scenes. Like Chris Beard wasn't telling me that so that I would come say it into a microphone. He was just talking about somebody that he spent time with, somebody that he's coached, somebody he's been in the gym with. He said, I'm just telling you, that dude's made of the right stuff. He will not let this season go the wrong way on them. And then he comes through on Saturday at Clemson, gets 23 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, and leads Memphis to what was the biggest win of the season to date, and could theoretically end up going down as the biggest win of the season before the NCAA tournament because they're not going to have opportunities anywhere else to get a road win, the quality of that road win. So it's all good stuff now. I've moved Memphis back into the top 25 and 1, up to number 21. They're up to 30th in the net. In most computers, they're in the 30s. But they do have a really strong strength of record metric. And that's just a snapshot of here's everything you've done, the wins, the losses, where these games have played. Everything is included in this. If we were ranking accomplishments in this season, I guess maybe that's perhaps not the best way to put it, but I think one that will help folks understand. If we were just ranking accomplishments, it's December 16th, and we're just ranking accomplishments in this season, they think Memphis has the 7th best resume in the country right now. That's what strength of record would suggest on some level. So it's a byproduct in part of them being 5-1 now in Quadrant 1. Now, they do have the Quadrant 3 loss to Arkansas State, and that's probably always going to be a Quadrant 3 loss because Arkansas State is
maybe.
It's just they've got to go.
They've got some bad losses on their schedule. That's their problem.
Well, Arkansas State would have to really move pretty significantly in the net to flip that loss to them into a Quadrant 2. Arkansas State, by the way, beat UAB yesterday.
They are horrible, dude.
UAB can't beat anybody.
They're bad.
Yeah.
I'm surprised by that.
Arkansas State was down 27 points to UAB in the second half, a week after beating Memphis inside FedEx Forum. and came back, won the game. It's the largest comeback in a Division I men's college basketball game in like 6 years.
Wow.
And it moved Arkansas State to 119th in the net. For that to ever be a quadrant 2 loss, they've got to get all the way up to 75.
Yeah, so it's going to be tough.
It's going to be tough for them to get to 75.
Yep.
So that's probably always going to be a quadrant 3 loss. Nothing you can do about it now except try to offset it with good victories. And they did that this weekend. They picked up 2 quadrant 1 victories this weekend by playing one game. Memphis did. They win at Clemson. Everybody knows that's a quadrant 1. So they wake up on Saturday morning, just to walk you through this. They have 3 quadrant 1 wins, which was one behind Auburn and Oregon for second most in the country. They win at Clemson on the road. That's another quadrant 1 win. They go to 4. Then yesterday, San Francisco beat Loyola Chicago on a neutral court in Milwaukee, and San Francisco goes from 52 in the net to 45 in the net. So outside of the top 50 to inside of the top 50. Well, suddenly Memphis has a neutral court win over San Francisco. Neutral court win over a team in the top 50 is quadrant 1. So Memphis, while you and I were sleeping last night and the net was refreshing, picked up a 5th quadrant 1 victory. So right now, Memphis and Auburn both have 5 quadrant 1 victories. And as Jason Munz pointed out on Twitter this morning, nobody else in the country has more than 3.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And the thing too, we said before this stretch started, I was like, man, I'll take 2 and 2. Honestly, after getting that one, I'm like, God, go 3 and 1 over this stretch, because that's the hardest one, is that one at Clemson. You would think, just because it's a road game. I think it would be a little deflating to, and you talked about this a little last week, to win this one at Clemson and then maybe get one against a Virginia team that's not as good as they typically have been, but then drop the 2 Mississippi ones. Like, you want to get one of those for sure.
For sure. Now I think you do want to go 3 and 1.
Yeah.
You don't. You're going to be favored at Virginia.
Yep.
You just will. It's still, it's John Paul Jones Arena, and it's still Virginia, but it's not Tony Bennett, and it's not Kyle Guy and DeAndre Hunter. Like this team, if you can get Virginia out of your head, this team's not very good. And this coach is an interim coach who's, I say this respectfully, but never really accomplished anything as a head coach.
Yeah, I got you.
So, like, you should go win this game. And then, honestly, come home and at that point get greedy if you want to. But also, if you just split with the Mississippi schools, they're both ranked.
They're both good.
They're both good. You'd feel really good coming out of that. And if you were to win these next 3, now we're talking about how many in a row can you get? Because you ready for this? Go to KenPom right now. Trivia time.
Okay.
When is the next time Memphis will be an underdog in a game, according to current KenPom projections?
And this includes these upcoming games.
Yeah.
Dude, are they going to be an underdog?
No.
At all? No. Yeah, they're not going to be an underdog in any game the rest of the season.
Based on current projections.
Right.
They will not be an underdog in any game.
There's no AAC game that they would be even on the road.
Based on current projections, the last time they should be an underdog before the NCAA tournament was Saturday's game at Clemson.
Yeah. And for me, that's why getting especially one of the Mississippi schools a win there, because that's likely, because they're both good, going to stay a quad 1, you would think, for a long time. And you just want to give yourself, listen, I want them to destroy this horrible conference, but you want to give yourself a cushion for if you lose a road game at Tulane or something like that.
Well,
you know
that's
what I mean?
why,
Yeah.
I mean, even Matt Norlander last night or 2 nights ago on the On College Basketball podcast was like, I'm just about ready to call Memphis a lock. And I'm like, it's December 16th.
That's right. And we saw what happened. I know it's a different team.
Memphis was ranked 10th in the country in January.
And I think this team is completely different and more resilient than that team. But still, we saw last season.
I do not remind you of that to warn you of what I believe is going to happen. I remind you of that to remind you that don't start thinking you've done so much that it can't be undone.
Right.
It can be undone. It was later in the calendar last season, and you were better.
Yes.
And you still could undo it. with one terrible loss after another in this terrible league. So it can still be undone. That's very important to remember. All of these things are true. Memphis has as many quadrant one wins right now as anybody in the country, and more than everybody except for Auburn. And Auburn is ranked number one in most of the computers. If you screw up too many times in your league, you can still miss the NCAA tournament. All of that's true. So this can still be undone if it goes the wrong way, but I don't think it's going to go the wrong way.
I don't either.
I think the league, first and foremost, is worse. And that's not even an opinion. It's worse. It is. It's fact.
Yeah, it's
the
terrible.
league is worse than it was last year, if only because Dusty May is no longer in the league. All right?
And SMU left.
South Florida's coach literally died.
Yeah, that's true. God, I forgot about that.
So the league's not as good, and you might be better. And you might just be made of some different stuff. And you got these guards, and they're maybe the best three-point shooting backcourt in basketball, which was another story on Saturday. They did it again.
Crazy.
It is crazy.
Yeah. I mean, kudos to those guys.
They're
but nobody saw it coming.
Memphis was 12 of 25 from three.
Yeah.
All right? They're now shooting 44.3% from beyond the arc on the season. That ranks second in the entire country. I keep telling you this isn't going to hold up, and then it just keeps holding up.
It's right. Yeah.
I still think it won't eventually. But we're about a third through the regular season, and they're the second best three-point shooting team in the country.
Yep.
At least as it pertains to at the rate at which they make the ones that they take. And it is mostly those three guards. They are all shooting career-high percentages from three. P.J. Haggerty shot 28.9% from three last season at Tulsa. He's up to 39.4% this season. So he's up 10.5 percentage points this season. Tyrese Hunter shot 34.3% from three last season at Texas. He's up to 51.6 from three this season. He's up 17.3 percentage points. And then Colby Rogers shot 40.9% from three last season at Wichita State. He's up to 44.6% this season. He's up 3.7 percentage points. So Memphis's three starting guards on the season are 70 of 151 from three. That's 46.4%.
Yeah, I'm glad to see Colby Rogers, too, become more of like an established scorer in that starting lineup. At least you saw it in that game. I think that's going to be important, too, where you're not just relying on those two guys in Haggerty and Tyrese Hunter. I feel like you need another guy that's a big scoring threat.
When you have three dudes who are knocking down shots at this rate from the perimeter on the court for much of the game, that's hard to deal with.
Yeah.
That's really hard to deal with. There was nothing in the history of these players that suggest this was coming. That's why I continue to assume it'll regress to the means at some point, but it hasn't yet.
Nah.
And, I still believe it will. Again, right now they're at 46.3. Just let me give you some context here on exactly how ridiculous that is. Last season, Kentucky led the country in three-point field goal percentage at 40.9. And they had Reed Shepherd and Rob Dillingham. All right?
Yeah.
And they shot 40.9% from three. That led the country. Right now, Memphis is 3 percentage points better than that. So I do think it's going to come back. But at some point, you have to acknowledge what you're watching, and that's these guards delivering one game after another. They're not all shooting brilliantly every game, but as a team, they are shooting well more often than not. And it really does start with those three guards. Fun team. Fun season so far.
That was awesome.
I know it got easy for some Memphis fans to get down after the loss to Arkansas State. I understand it, but that was a massive bounce back thing that they had Saturday. Now Wednesday night, you're at Virginia, and then it's Ole Miss and Mississippi State on back-to-back weekends. If you can really win these next three, and I think just go 2-1 in the next three and you're still fine, but win the next three, and now we can start talking about, if you can run through the AAC, I mean, we're talking about, can you compete for a 1 seed? Can you compete for a 2 seed? Can you compete for a 3 seed? Because, again, they've already got 5 quadrant 1 wins. They've proven themselves against quality competition and positioned themselves to not only make the NCAA tournament, but get a pretty high seed as long as they don't give it back once that AAC schedule arrives.
The Gary Parrish Show, live weekdays at 10 a.m.